Rotary certainly has some membership challenges. However, there are people who are thinking creatively and seeing membership growth. We're going to talk to these inventive Rotarians and get some tips that you can try. Welcome to the Innovative Clubs videocast. Hey folks, welcome back to the Innovative Club videocast. Today I've got with me Tom Gump. He's the current district governor from District 5950, and that is in Minneapolis. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you very much, Andy, for having me here today.
Yeah, gladly. So, we're here to talk about innovative clubs. And do you have an innovative club that you started that's a cause-based club that's focused on veterans? So, kick us off and tell us a little bit about that.
Sure, absolutely. This was last year when Mark Maloney was saying that we should start clubs. And I was thinking who and what group most aligns with Rotary, both in terms of its ideals and its service. And I thought veterans. I mean, what better group actually has given their life to service, who likes to seek peace and likes camaraderie, the same things that Rotary stands for.
Excellent. So, tell me about how you went about that. What was the process? What did that look like before your first meeting? How did you draw interests? Where did the idea come from? So, kind of go through the whole thing from the beginning.
Sure. In my city, I'm in charge of the 4th of July parade. And on the 3rd of July, we usually have a dinner for veterans. And I had a mailing list of 200 veterans. And so I started with that mailing list. I aligned myself with a general, and that gave me a lot of credibility with some of the local military folks. And what I did was focused on veterans who are already involved in other veterans groups because I knew that that would be a good way to grow.
Excellent. So how did you start reaching out to those folks? And well, you said you had that list. What
Mhm.
did that look like? Did you call them? Did you email them? Did you, meet them in person? Did you bring them to a kind of an interest meeting? What did that look like?
So I'm sure any of those methods would work, but I chose the snail mail, and I actually drafted letters and mailed them out. And what I decided to do, Andy, was to meet in small groups. My theory was if I had a big group, people would focus on what the differences are. And so I decided to have a series of lunches with just 2 or 3 veterans at a time and see what they liked. And what I've discovered is if you put their interest in front of our interest, it usually works pretty well. And then eventually, when I had enough buy-in, 30 or so folks, then we had an in-person facilitation in the basement of a church, even though Rotary's non-affiliated with political and with religious organizations. But there was a pastor of that church who was in my current Rotary Club, and it was a great facility. And we brought in a facilitator, and we asked everyone what they wanted to see in a club. And it was amazing having that many people, I guess because they were similar backgrounds. Now, they didn't know each other. Some were the Army, some were a Navy, some were Air Force, some were Marines, Coast Guard, the sheriff of Hennepin County. But it was interesting how supportive they all were on their first meeting and all kind of agreed what they wanted out of the club.
So you go through that process, you've interviewed the people and gotten a good understanding of what they want and not what you're trying to push on them, which I think is a great way to go about it, right? Is because we have our traditions and the way we've always done things in Rotary. So, why was moving in that direction important to you particularly?
Well, I realized when I was president of my Rotary Club, there were 3 ways to grow Rotary. You can grow your current club membership, you could retain your current members, or you can start new clubs. And Andy, really the first two, and it might be counterintuitive, but those are the most difficult because you have to change cultures. And in order to change cultures, you have to change people. And when I've tried to do that in the past by changing meeting format, meeting time, meeting location, I got a lot of pushback. Then when I realized you can get a group of people and have them decide those things, you're not changing the culture, and they come together quickly and easily, and they keep tending to grow after that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So after your you're meeting in the basement of a church with those folks, and you did that listening session, as you might say. What happened next?
We started moving forward with the formation of a club. The paperwork requires you to have 5 officers, those kind of things. Um, the interesting thing was the question we were being asked by some of the veterans were, what it came down to, in my words, was, why should we trust you? Why should we trust Rotary? Because in their opinion, everyone wants to get the veterans together because they usually want something, in the veterans' opinion, some of the veterans' opinion, they want something out of them. So I realized quickly that our district had to have skin in the game in order to make this work. So I went to our board of directors for the district, and I proposed a pro-growth policy, which basically said that all the district fees for the year after the formation of a new club would be waived. I didn't do it just for the veterans because I wanted it to be for other clubs as well. And so then I could tell the veterans, hey, the district is doing this, has done something to help you out. And that helped break down some of those barriers.
Excellent, excellent. So what does their meeting format look like? How often do they meet? What do they do? How do they serve? What does it look like?
It doesn't look a lot like a traditional Rotary Club because it doesn't meet at a Tuesday morning at 7:30 or another similar time. It meets twice a month on a Thursday evening, still at the basement of the church. It's COVID now, so they have a lot of remote meetings. But the interesting thing, Andy, is that people will drive, some of them when we were meeting in person, 2.5 hours to come to this Rotary meeting, which to me, as district governor, as of July 1, I've visited, as of this afternoon, 43 clubs. And if you talk to them, most of them either live or work in that general area. But the cause-based clubs, it's not that way. And it's interesting because we lose most of our Rotarians between the 2nd and 3rd year. And when they get to the 3rd year, they seem to stay. Why? Because they have lifelong friendships. And, even if they change jobs, they still stay with that club. Now, how do we keep them during the first 2.5 years? We give them a passion. And if we put that passion first, they follow it. And it's not that they were veterans, so to speak. It was that they all had the common interest and passion to serve other veterans. So that's what really keeps them together. So it's not just bringing a bunch of firefighters together, a bunch of teachers together. It's bringing the teachers together because they want to fight illiteracy. So that's a key distinction.
Excellent. So when they gave you the information in that info session, at that point, were they talking about that they wanted to serve other veterans, or how did that piece of the conversation go to guide it in that pretty specific direction?
It's interesting because it started out when you were asking open-ended questions, they kept coming back with one-word answers. And it's interesting, across the different branches, it's amazing how similar their goals were to Rotary. I know someone from the Air Force, it was a nurse actually, she said there's 5 different, in their credo for the Air Force, there's 5 things, and one is service above self. And it's like, oh. But the number one thing they came up with was peace, which, I want everyone in your audience to know it's easy to start a new club. And I want them to know if I could do it, they could do it. Because, I'm not a veteran, and there's not a single active military base in my whole state. But yet we've started the first ever veterans club in the world. And now that idea is out there, Houston started one, Dallas started one. I'm talking to a group in South Africa who wants to start one. So they could do it. But it was interesting when they started throwing out the one words of what they want. Peace was the first one. Second was service. And the third was camaraderie. How many heads were nodding in the room? Actually, my friend, Bob McLean, who's my district governor classmate in the district north of me, when I was walking across the room, he was talking to 3 veterans, and he was telling them that he's been going to Rotary meetings for 18 years, and he said this was the favorite meeting he ever went to because they were all bonding over the same thing. And it's interesting, you bring so many different types of people together all in one place, and they can have the same interest. So that's what's going to keep them passionate. And it's not, when you start it, it's all about serving the vets, but when they find out about what Rotary does, when we say, hey, we're going to eradicate polio, and we help form the UN, they find these things out and they become true Rotarians. But when you're recruiting, and when you're like you and me, Andy, and we bleed Rotary, blue and gold, a little pink for Rotaract, um, we always tend to put that first, but we got to remember is we're reaching out in the community and we're bringing in new people. And to do that, we have to let their passion be first and then Rotarian second. But after time, their Rotarian nature comes first because it ends up being the same thing.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Did you did I guess your club was that the kind of the host or parent club, and how did they support it? Did they get behind it? What did that piece look like?
It's interesting because we had support from all over the district, but let me tell you what form that support took. When we were about to charter, there was one club who called up and said, "Hey, can we give you a bell?" And they would engrave their name, their club's name, and the chartering date, and they'd give us a gavel. Another group from another district got us 7-foot pull-up banners. One was a four-way test, and one was just about the Minnesota Veterans Club. And there were name tags given. One club gave the box to hold name tags, so everyone got involved in it. But it's interesting when it comes to actually getting the folks together, you really need someone with that spark and passion to do it. And it's not necessarily a whole club. The clubs that gave us support came after when they saw some momentum. In our experience, we've formed a few cause-based clubs over the last 18 months or so. And our experience has been, if you go slow with it, sometimes you gain a few, and then by the time you get another few, if you wait too long, you lose the first few. We found out you need to jump both foot forward and get everyone involved and try to get it. So the sponsorship from a club is important, but what our main financial partner was actually our district, and we put aside funds at the beginning of the year. And the reason we did that is because we wanted new clubs, but we wanted them to know that you have some help. If you leave it up to a sponsoring club, what happens is it's always the big clubs in the district that start that. So you have 4 or 5 clubs in the same city or town. What we wanted to do was to spread it out. So we think it's better for the district to have money. That's my personal opinion.
No, yeah, that's a great model and a great idea, and a way, I think you bring up a valid point, right? Is there could be a really active smaller club that may not necessarily have the funds to make that kind of a opportunity as the district did. So I think it's a great idea for districts to be able to put that out there for clubs, so that a really great active small club could potentially start their own thing and be able to help support them this new venture in some form or fashion.
You're 100% right, Andy. I mean, if you think about it, take somewhere like the Black Hills of South Dakota, that would be a perfect spot to do an eco club, but it may not be the largest club in 5610. And we can come up with examples all day long on that front.
Yeah. Well, were there any obstacles that you faced, and if so, or any that you didn't expect that you faced, and talk about those?
There were a few of them. One is you have to approach the right group of people. When I spoke to the presidents of our clubs as a whole, and I'm friends with most of them, they'll say, "Well, Tom, I got to focus on my own club, and I got to focus on growing my own club," which is totally understandable. That's their job, and our existing clubs are the backbone of our districts. And we have to respect that. We have to help them maintain their members, recruit new members. But, what I did was I went to Brian King, who's head of membership development for Rotary International. And I said, "Brian, can you please do a study and tell us exactly when the last 5 years, new clubs that started, how many people were new to Rotary?" And the answer came back at 88%. And really that number in reality might be a little bit higher, because if some people are leaving clubs to go to another club, that original club might have left them anyway. And when we had a 3-year initiative in our district against human trafficking, and we brought in the district to the north of us and district to the south of us. And after 3 years, the person who was heading that initiative came to me and said, "We're about to lose some Rotarians because, they go to their club and they got some support for a speaker or two and maybe a district grant, but they want to focus on this, and they don't want to focus on all the wonderful other things that Rotary does, like literacy and fresh water." So I said, "You need to start a club." And then, of course, it's always, oh, I don't know if I could do that. And I said, yes, you can. We can help you. It's not that hard. And she goes, okay, but I'm going to stay with my own club. But then eventually she became president of this club and is going to be the president for the next 2 years. And it went really well. But that's a case where we would have lost a bunch of Rotarians if we didn't. And to give you an example of just what a club like this can do, a few weeks ago we were on, and there's a lot of people from around the world in this club. There is we have people from Thailand, we have people from Great Britain, we have a person from Australia. So I was on, and there was a brand new member from Turkey. So I thought, this is pretty interesting, and I was excited about it. When I got off the meeting, an hour or two later, I got an email from Mark Maloney, our immediate past president of RI, saying, hey, my sister just joined your End Human Trafficking Club, and I've been trying to get her to join Rotary for over 40 years. See, that's the power of a cause-based club, because we're drawing them. And even though she lives in Turkey and the club was chartered here, that happens. We're working with a group of people now. Some are in Connecticut, some are in New Jersey, 5 are in Texas, 5 in Ohio, and we're going to start the first ever club to empower women. And we have our next meeting this Saturday morning. So it can be done. You just have to harness the right passion. And you have to be looking for the passion. And so I don't think we should come up with preconceived notions. I think we should go out in our communities and we should ask them, what can we do? Because when I was a president, I thought, okay, I'm just going to talk to everyone I know and I'm going to bring in everybody. And I did. But, not always the 7:30 on a Tuesday morning works for people, because they want to take their kids to the bus stop or whatever else. So what I found is, find out what they want, throw out the playbook, and start your own Rotary Club.
Well, I think that's I don't think I can ask you to end it any better than that. That's a great way to wrap it up. Tom, I can't thank you enough for your time. I can't thank you enough for your dedication to Rotary and pushing out new ideas and trying new things, because I think, us as Rotary as an organization, we need it. And kudos to you for continuing to push that envelope.
And thank you, Andy, for spreading the word for us.